Don't look at Barry for this one, guys. Don't even look at his eyes. If you meet his gaze, you are just finished, okay? Hey everybody, how you doing? Tekking101 here, as well as my brick companion over here in this general area. Today we're gonna be talking about pain! Wait, didn't we already do this? Oh yeah, we did, for Christmas, because that was a jolly Christmas day, right? Hey, Pain brought peace and happiness to all of Konoha by reviving everyone that died after he attacked and pretty much wiped out all of Konoha, right? But no, today we're talking about Nagato, the man behind the eyes and the corpses and the piercings of Pain, right? I just thought breaking it up into two videos would be easier on myself, to be honest with you, because I was running through the Pain video in my head, and I'm like, alright, I gotta talk about all the different paths of Pain and all the abilities of the Rinnegan and everything, and then that's gonna get me to, like, I think I was already at, like, 40 minutes, and then that wasn't even talking about the guy that originally had the Rinnegan. Well, Nagato didn't originally have the Rinnegan, but we'll get to that in a second. And so I thought it would just be easier to break it all apart, right? And so Nagato, as his own character, aside from Pain, the six paths of that are sort of like their own thing, okay? Even though they are controlled by Nagato, I kind of view them as different things altogether. Okay, so, Nagato, man, you gotta feel bad for this guy. Really, like, seriously, this dude got the short end of the stick. We've already joked quite a bit in Naruto how, like, the latter half of this series was all, like, masterminds being double-crossed by greater masterminds being double-crossed by an even greater mastermind. But Nagato was at the bottom of that tier. He was the bottom of the hierarchy, right? He was purportedly, like, from what, like, the fanbase thought, was the leader of the Akatsuki, right? End of part 1, there he is. He's in the shadows. And then throw all out, like, the earlier parts of part 2, it's like, yeah, this is this guy that's, like, the leader of the Akatsuki. He's the one kind of calling the shots, right? That's Pain. And then when Jiraiya fights Pain, there's really no debate, because it's like, oh my god, this guy is so strong he can defeat and kill Jiraiya. That makes sense, because he's the leader of the Akatsuki. This is going to be the final battle of Naruto, right? The final battle for the series of Naruto, as well as being the final battle for Naruto. You know, he's going to defeat Pain, defeat the Akatsuki, and avenge his fallen sensei. Yeah, but no, it was Nagato being manipulated by Obito, who was being manipulated by Madara, who was being manipulated by Black Zetsu, who was being manipulated by Kaguya, I don't know, in Boruto, it's probably been revealed that Kaguya was being manipulated by some other aliens out there in the freaking Naruto galaxies or whatever the hell, right? Point is, Nagato was at the bottom of this, alright? And, you know what? Let's look at this, okay? So, Obito obviously did not sign up to be, like, Madara's pawn in all this, right? He was a ninja, he was out there, he was a genin with Kakashi and Rin and Minato, and they were out there, it was the Third Shinobi World War, they were on the battlefield, it was a crappy situation for everybody involved, but, you know, Obito had that accident, and he was about to be buried, and he was buried in the rock slide, and, you know, he gave the Sharingan to Kakashi, and be like, you will be a great Jonin someday, make sure to protect Rin, I'm dead. And of course he wakes up and Madara kind of grabbed him and dragged him back to his underground tree cave. You know, this decrepit old man. He's there, I'm Madara Uchiha! Back in my day, Hashirama's cells meant nothing because I was Hashirama's cells. Check it out! You know, very creepy old man. But you know, after that point onward, it was Madara kind of like manipulating Obito a little bit, and the fact that Obito would have straight up died if it wasn't for Madara's assistance and kind of attaching the cells to him. He was kind of connected to the area, so Obito really couldn't leave even if he wanted to until he healed. And, you know, this was kind of like, he was kind of dropped into this. He was kind of like forced into it, really. And then you have Madara, you know, it didn't really start with him until he was an adult, with the whole confrontation with the Senju and his relationship with Hashirama and everything like that. And obviously Black Zetsu's been manipulating him since God knows whenever. But Nagato, though. Let's look at Nagato. Nagato was not a ninja growing up. He was just this poor orphan kid from the Hidden Rain village. He was not a ninja. I don't think his parents were ninjas. There was just a family living out in the middle of this war-torn country ruled by a dictator, Hanzo of the Salamander, right? And at just a little kid, Madara decided, oh, okay, before I die, I'm gonna rip out my Rinnegan, I guess give it to Zetsu, and then Zetsu's going to find a host for my Rinnegan that will be able to keep it safe and will be able to be manipulated by my will. Of course, Madara thought Black Zetsu was his will, not Kaguya's, but okay. I know this is already getting confusing, alright? But, you know, we're pretty deep into the Akatsuki discussion, so we're getting there, right? But anyway, yeah. So I guess, you know, right before or maybe after Madara finally died of just old age, of being hooked up to the ghetto statue for God knows how long, he's like, you know, take my Rinnegan and give it to someone, give it to a successor, and then manipulate that successor, Obito. That is your duty. And so we don't exactly know how this happened. Like, was like Nagato just asleep in his it happened before his parents died, because Nagato first awakened the Rinnegan when his parents were killed by Konoha ninja. And so he had it implanted before then, but we just don't know how this went down. If Black Zetsu was just like, you know, like observing like you know, potential candidates for it. We do know Nagato was chosen for the Rinnegan because he was an Uzumaki, and as we know from Kushina and everybody, you know, the Uzumaki clan have an insane amount of chakra reserves. You know, so that way it's like, okay, the Rinnegan's obviously going to zap a lot of chakra out of you. Kind of the same thing with like when Obito gave his Sharingan to Kakashi. Kakashi could still use the Sharingan, he could get really good with the Sharingan, he could even awaken the Mangyako Sharingan, but the problem is it just takes way too much stamina and chakra, and Kakashi isn't a Uchiha, so that was just a constant, you know, problem he had. He had to always keep it, like, you know, covered with his headband to make sure it wasn't constantly using it, because he couldn't turn the damn thing off, right? That was kind of a problem there, right? Kind of the same deal with the Rinnegan, except you can imagine, as you see here with Barry, it is also constantly active, and it will drain your chakra, right? So I don't exactly know how that went down. I guess Zetsu just kind of like found Nagato as a little kid and was just like, oh, all right, well, I'm just gonna perform eye surgery really quick, and then Nagato wakes up the next day like with like rings in his eyes. Actually, it didn't happen right away, because it's like one of those things, like the same thing with the Sharingan, like you need a certain amount of trauma or something to like kickstart the Rinnegan. So Nagato, probably whatever method they used to transplant the Rinnegan into Nagato, he probably didn't realize it right away. And so in actuality, when he finally did awaken the Rinnegan, it was when him and his parents were in their house, you know, this beaten up old shack in the middle of the rain village that's, you know, being a just war-torn country. Some Konoha ninja broke in to kind of get some food, because they were like behind enemy lines, and they're like, okay, we need to find a place to rest for the night. They just assumed that the house was abandoned. So they're like, all right, let's just sneak in and steal, see if they can find some food, some rations or whatever. And then I believe it was Nagato's parents that attacked the ninja breaking into their house. And then, you know, Nagato's parents weren't ninja, but the Konoha ninja were. And so they responded just like, ah! And then that's how Nagato's parents died, and then Nagato, that's when he awoke the Rinnegan. It was really kind of messed up, where after the Konoha ninja, like, kill Nagato's parents, they kind of see Nagato in the corner, this little kid, like, crying, like, Mom, Dad? It's like, oh, sorry, kid, we didn't know anyone was in here, and we walked in, and they just attacked us, and just, ah! And so he just awoke the Rinnegan and killed the two Konoha ninja right there. So I would assume, Nagato assumed, that that was his own power. I mean, what other reason would he have to think about it? Like, he's just like, I, you know, experienced trauma, and then my eyes went into the ring pattern, and then from that day onward, I'm just, you know, just ninja power, just, I wake up and everyone's dead, you know, there you go. But, you know, that was, once again, that wasn't Nagato's power, that was all part of Madara's master plan, which was actually Zetsu's master plan, which was actually Kaguya's master plan, alright? I mean, damn. You know, he had no stake in this game. He was not a player in this game. He was just selected because, oh yeah, he's Uzumaki, he's probably got a lot of chakra, so that's the reason he's the next bearer of the Rinnegan. You know, Nagato was not a ninja. He did not sign up for this. You know, he was living in this crap hole, basically. I mean, hell, at least with Naruto, yeah, the entire village basically hated him when Naruto was growing up, but at least Naruto lived in a village that had, like, clean running water and, like, electricity and enough food. Like, Naruto could eat ramen whenever he wanted. Look at the crappy situation Nagato grew up in, and then on top of losing his parents, he's also, like, being manipulated by, like, a bunch of other people on top of this high, like, it just, the tower keeps growing of people that are being manipulated, and he's, like, the last marionette on the very bottom, basically. I mean, yeah, I know, there was also the Akatsuki that technically worked under Nagato, but it really didn't start getting to that structure until you get to Pain, and then Obito, and, you know, Madara, and everything like that, right? Right, so where did I leave off? Oh yeah, so Nagato is an orphan. That's where we left off. Okay, so he's an orphan. He finds other orphans in the Rain Village or in the surrounding area. You got Yahiko and you got Konan. They're all around the same age, and they all just kind of start traveling around and trying to eke out an existence as much as they can. You know, they eat food out of dumpsters. You know, they try to stay warm. You know, the Rain Village, it's constantly raining and storming and windy. You know, so they're just living a really crappy life until one day they run across the legendary Sannin, Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and Tsunade, because this was during the Second Great Shinobi World War. This was actually where the Sannin were given the title of Sannin. They fought against Hanzo of the Salamander. I believe it was before this. Yeah, it was before this. So they fought against Hanzo, and they weren't able to defeat Hanzo, but Hanzo was so impressed by their tenacity and their skills that he dubbed them, you know, I dub you the three legendary ninja, the Sannin. You know, and so Hanzo left, and then that remained, you know, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru there. And so they were kind of still behind enemy lines, and they run across the three Amegakure orphans, you know, Yahiko, Konan, and Nagato, and they give them some food, they give them some crackers or whatever, and they keep following them around, and Orochimaru, this has kind of become somewhat of a meme on the internet recently, but Orochimaru just kind of looks to Jiraiya and just like, in a very polite way, he's like, shall I kill these children? He just says it right in front of them, and it's just like, he's like, look, Jiraiya, Tsunade, they're orphans. We know, like, look at this place. It's the Second Shinobi World War. We're literally just standing in a massive crater of just death and detritus. These kids are not gonna survive. You know they're not gonna survive. It's just like, shall I kill them? You know, and Jiraiya's like, come on, Orochimaru, come on. You know, always with the killing with you, and always with the snakes. What's up with you, right? And so they don't listen to Orochimaru there. You know, Konan gives them a little origami flower, and Tsunade's like, oh, that's nice. You know, thank you for helping us. Like, that was cool. By the way, while I'm on the subject of that, there is something about this scene that's also kind of always bugged me, and it's a very nitpicky kind of thing, but what the hell is with the weird spacesuit kind of outfits that all of them are wearing here? I never understood that. It's like, they're orphans, but they all have the exact same, like, is it a helmet? I never understood that. Is it a helmet that they put on to, like, protect themselves from the elements, but they don't have them on? Is it supposed to catch, like, rainwater and, like, filter it so they have water to drink? Is it just, like, a backpack? I never understood that. It looked like short-sleeved spacesuits they were wearing, and I never understood that. But at any rate, okay. So, Jiraiya decides, he's like, you know what, Orochimaru, we're not killing them. You guys go back to the village. I'm gonna stay here in the Rain Village, and I'm gonna train them, and I'm gonna teach them how to hunt and fish and survive on their own. Because you gotta understand, like, the Second Shinobi World War, Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and Tsunade, they all have blood on their hands, right? It isn't just Orochimaru, okay? Like, Jiraiya killed a lot of ninja, Tsunade killed a lot of ninja, it was the freaking World War, alright? So, you know, I think Jiraiya just felt some guilt from that, and just like, you know what? This is a horrible situation for everybody involved. It might not be much, it might not rectify the situation, but I will stay behind enemy lines in this village, and I will make sure at least these three kids, these orphans, will at least, they won't die in a gutter somewhere. I'll at least teach them how to survive and make it. And then who knows, maybe someday they'll grow up and they'll reform the Rain Village, and they'll maybe improve. Who knows? Just, it's not going to be much, but at least I can do that much. So Jiraiya stayed behind. They had this little shack next to the river, and, you know, Jiraiya, you know, built the place, and he made sure everything was secure. He even had installed, like, a little trapdoor, like an escape route, and there was, like, different drills they ran of, like, okay, make sure if you know, you leave, you go flip these little tiles over, so if, in case, for example, let's say an enemy ninja were to use the transformation jutsu and impersonate one of us, we now know, like we have a secret code and stuff. So he's teaching them that kind of stuff. At first, he was only teaching teaching them basic survival skills. He was teaching them how to hunt and fish and all that stuff, how to cook and everything. But then they started with, like, Jiraiya Sensei, we want to learn ninjutsu. We want to learn how to, I mean, hunting and fishing's all well and good. That'll allow us to survive, but we want to get strong. We want to be able to protect ourselves in case another war breaks out. Or, like, Hanzo is our leader. I mean, we kind of need to protect ourselves. So Jiraiya was a little hesitant, but he's like, all right, fine, I'll teach you ninjutsu. Now, Konan awoke to her, her paper ninjutsu pretty quickly. I think Yahiko was prominently water style release. He was using, like, water jutsu. Nagato was the interesting one. There was actually that incident. I think that was actually the incident that actually got Jiraiya to teach them ninjutsu, because he was very hesitant at first. But there was one day when they were out gathering food, I guess, or out fishing or whatever, and a stone ninja, a stone chunin, attacked them, and Nagato once again awoke to the Rinnegan power and was able to kill him. And Jiraiya found him, and he's like, oh my god, this is a chunin from the hidden village of the stones. How the hell did you manage to... Oh, and he sees Nagato with the eyes, and he's like, that's... Ooh, okay, things just got a little bit more complicated. Okay, so kids, I'm gonna teach you ninjutsu tomorrow. Get up bright and early, we're gonna do some fire styles and whatnot, right? So, yeah, because Jiraiya realized right then and there, like, oh, because he already, I think this was this before or after the prophecy? Jiraiya's lived a long life. I don't actually know if this was, or this might have been after the prophecy he received from the Grand Sage Toad. But at any rate, Jiraiya was like, I can't let these kids, I mean, he has the flippin' Rinnegan. I have to teach them ninjutsu. I at least have to teach them, my ninja way, so that they don't learn, like, because if I just leave them now, they might learn it from someone else, and they might, it might not be good. So I got to teach them the ninja way properly. So he does that, and he teaches them ninjutsu and all that stuff, and, Konan learns the paper technique, and Yahiko water style. Nagato, because he knows he has the Rinnegan, he can basically master any element whatsoever perfectly. So a lot of times you'll have, like, a specific element, like Naruto's is wind. And yes, you can learn other elements, like Kakashi can do more than just lightning or fire, but it's like you're going to be kind of best at one. See, with the Rinnegan and with Nagato's power, it's kind of all evened on the chart, so he can kind of master all types of ninjutsu with, like, 100% accuracy and potential and strength and all that kind of stuff, right? Because of the Rinnegan. It's basically a cheat code for him, essentially. And so he learned all these kinds of ninjutsu at a very young age. The final test Jiraiya had was like, all right, I'm gonna use the Shadow Clone Jutsu. If you can defeat my Shadow Clone in combat, that means that you're kind of ready. You're basically Genin level or higher even. You're maybe Chunin level, and you can kind of handle yourself. So the time eventually came after Jiraiya had kind of taught them. He thought, okay, I think they're going to be okay now. And Jiraiya even had really high expectations for them. He was thinking, you know what? I did what I had to do. They're good kids. Nagato, even though he has the Rinnegan, he's this very, very sympathetic, very empathetic. He's a very caring child. I think he'll be okay, even with this great power. I think he can handle it. And Konan and Yahiko are his friends. They're going to be with him too. I think they can reform this country. I think they can change the world. And so Jiraiya, with that knowledge and kind of peace of mind at hand, he leaves them. I understand Jiraiya travels a lot, and the Hidden Leaf Village is his home at the end of the day. He wasn't going to spend the rest of his life living with them in the Rain Village and everything. But you gotta wonder, like, if Jiraiya hung out with them a little bit longer, or maybe if Jiraiya just, checked in on them every year or so, like, because it really does seem like he just left. And over the years, like, through the grapevine, he heard about some exploits that they were doing, and maybe they were doing okay, and Jiraiya's like, oh, all right, that's what happened to them. I'm glad they're doing okay. Jiraiya could have done something like, all right, Yahiko, Konan, Nagato, I've trained you all, and I think you're going to reform this country. I have to head back home now, but let's make an agreement, like, once a year on Christmas Day or something, we'll meet back here at the old hut where we lived, and we'll, catch up or whatever. Maybe something like that. Maybe that could have helped, but no. Jiraiya basically leaves them to their own devices. Now, at first, it all seemed to be going okay. Yahiko was sort of their leader, and he was like, all right, we're going to form a group, and we're going to take back our country. We're going to take it back from Hanzo, okay? We're going to do this. And so the Akatsuki is formed, the first generation of the Akatsuki, okay? Most of these people are dead now, and we don't even know what's up with them. But anyway, first iteration of the Akatsuki, right? And they lacked the really cool red cloud pattern robes, unfortunately, right? And so Yahiko was their leader, and he's like, all right, we're going to do this, right? We're going to take down Hanzo. At the same time this was going on, Obito, Madara, but Obito was trying to, like, sway the way the Akatsuki were gonna go, because you imagine Obito has been kind of observing Nagato using the Rinnegan his whole life, and he's kind of like, okay, I have to guide him down a certain path. And so I think Obito even approached Yahiko and the others and like, ah, yes, the Akatsuki, I've heard of your exploits, you know. Have you guys ever heard of the Eye of the Moon plan, you know? And so Yahiko actually, I think, turns him down. He's like, you know what? I'm not buying what you're selling. Just never bother us again. I'm not interested in this grand plan, you know, internal genjutsu thing. Yeah, I'm not into that. And so he even tells the rest of the Akatsuki, like, don't associate with Obito or Madara, that guy, he's weird. And so I think he still was, like, manipulating the Akatsuki from the shadows, though, in some way to make it go down a certain road. Eventually, they actually do catch the notice of Hanzo, because there's this, like, rebellion revolutionary group at work in his country. We find out Hanzo is also very, very paranoid. Like, Hanzo was the kind of guy that, like, had his room guarded all day and night, wouldn't even allow, like, his other family members or, like, elderly people, wouldn't allow anybody to in close to him personally, because he didn't trust anyone. He's like, everybody's an enemy, right? That was Hanzo. So Hanzo eventually notices that there's this rebellion group in his country, and he's like, okay, well, we're gonna shut that shit down pretty quick. Danzo Shimura from, you know, the Konoha, from the Anbu, he actually ends up helping them, which might have been, you know, that might have been Obito working, like, oh, okay, I'm gonna send a message to Hanzo and Danzo. Hey, Hanzo, your name sounds like Danzo. Yeah, it does. You guys should work together. So they do. And they corner the Akatsuki, and it basically comes down to an ultimatum. It's, a lot of the Akatsuki members die, and it's like, okay, I've captured Konan. So, you know, Nagato, you have to kill Yahiko, the leader of the Akatsuki, or I'll kill Konan. You've got 5 seconds. And so Yahiko, of course, is the leader. So he's like, you know what, if this is how it has to be done and how Conan's going to be saved, I have to do it. And so Nagato, he can't do it. He's like, I can't do it, Yahiko. He's like, don't worry, I'll help you. And so Yahiko impales himself on Nagato's kunai. And that's how he dies. Very similar to the way I think Rin died, you know, with Kakashi and all that stuff. So Yahiko kind of, like, does it because he's like, it's okay, it's not your fault, don't feel bad, this had to happen. And so Konan does get let go, and so Konan is back. But that's the point where Nagato kind of snaps. Where literally his best friend ever since he was a kid is dead in his arms. And yeah, it wasn't him that did it, but, you know, Nagato's the one holding the knife, and Yahiko impaled him, and he's like, it's okay, this had to be done. And so, you know, he freaks out, activates his abilities, the Ghetto statue gets summoned, all the giant rods come out of his back, you know, the chakra receivers, and he fights Hanzo. Doesn't manage to kill him, does manage to wipe out a good chunk of his forces. Hanzo does get injured and leave, but also the resulting battle, that's the thing that really messed up his legs and everything and left his body kind of wrecked, because he was kind of being reckless with his ability, and he was using his Rinnegan to, like, an insane level that he probably couldn't handle at that point, and his whole body got wrecked in the ensuing battle, okay? And so that's why we see him in, like, the Star Wars, like, the mechanical crab walker later on, because his legs are wrecked and he's using his chakra up a lot, so that's why his body is as emaciated as it is, okay? And so it's at that point that he decides, okay, screw it. We tried to do this. We tried to do everything the right way. You know, we trained with ninjutsu with Jiraiya, and we did everything right. We had this organization. We were going to bring the dawn of this new world. That's what Akatsuki literally means. It's just dawn. You know, we were going to bring the dawn. We were going to defeat Hanzo. Like, this was supposed to be going so well. And then I'm forced to, like, you know, involuntarily, like, Yahiko dies in my arms. And so he kind of cracks there. And that's the point where Nagato becomes pain. That's the reason why he's like, I need to bring pain to the world so everybody knows how much suffering there is. And so when everybody feels an equal amount of suffering and we're all on equal ground here, then that's the only time peace can emerge. And like I said last time with pain, I'm like, look, I mean, that's a really big gamble, Nagato. I mean, you acted like that was the only way it could be done, and it might have been. I mean, this is shonen and anime logic, so it might have worked in that context, but I don't know. I mean, that could have also fostered even more hatred. Like, you bring pain to the world, and then somebody grows up, having intense, like, does like, oh, I felt pain, so therefore it must be peace. No, there might even be like it goes deeper than that, like even more pain underneath the pain you caused, and somebody else might try to bring about even more pain in the world, right? So it's not a guarantee you are going to get peace in that way, right? And of course, but that's the way he went. That's like his logic. That made perfect sense to him, and the gears were turning. Once again, Obito was kind of in the shadows manipulating everything. But yeah, it eventually came down to that, and it came down to the point where it was him and Konan, and he's like, you know what? We're going to use the Yahiko's corpse, and we're going to make the six paths. That's when Hanzo finally died with the six paths of pain, like the proper six paths. They killed Hanzo. Nagato took over the Hidden Rain village and the entire country, and basically was like setting himself up as a god. The people thought he was a god, so he's like, fine, I'm a god, sure. And they had the power to like turn off the rain, and so like to control the weather around the village. And I think there was even a way, like I think there was even a mention that like Jiraiya snuck into the village, and Nagato was like, someone circumvented my rain. So the rain was like a way to sense whether people were like intruders were entering the village. So with this immense power, with the Rinnegan and like the large chakra reserves that all Uzumakis have, and Konan by his side, and the rest of the Akatsuki, the rest of the citizens just thought he was a savior, and so he was to them, basically. He did kill Hanzo. I think the living conditions in the Hidden Rain village were definitely better than living under Hanzo's regime, okay? Definitely better, but still, Nagato's plan for the world, wasn't that good. But at any rate, this is kind of where we connect back to the present, where Jiraiya runs into them and everything, and then, that connects back to the pain video I did, 2 weeks ago. One more thing I wanted to mention. This is going back a little bit. This was back before shit hit the fan and Yahiko died. There was just those moments where we got to see Konan and Yahiko and Nagato all working together to form this organization. It wasn't like a mercenary group. It was kind of like, I mean, maybe they did do kind of some stuff with that. I mean, it was a very brutal area they lived in. But it was like, this is the spark of hope. This is us taking all the misery we felt growing up as orphans and all the things that Jiraiya Sensei taught us, and we're going to change the world. And for a few years there, it was like, they were making headway. They were like actually improving things. Like their group was gathering steam, and Hanzo was like being kind of nervous. It's just like, we might actually be able to do this. And so there were plenty of years together where they were all together, and as long as they were all together, I bet they all felt like, as long as we're here together, we're fine. We can make this happen. We can make the dream come true. And so there was even a scene I remember where after a battle, Yahiko and Konan, like Konan was like bandaging up Yahiko, and they kind of get close to each other like they're about to kiss. And so there's like a relationship thing going on there, like a romance thing. And then Nagato is like outside of the door, and he's just kind of like, I ship those two. He was just kind of smiling, like, he's like, yeah, Konan and Yahiko, I knew they were going to get together. Yeah, that's how it goes. He wasn't like jealous or anything. He was just like, yeah, that's the way it was supposed to go, right? And it was kind of lighthearted and kind of like, yeah, they were in a war. Yeah, they were part of this revolutionary group, but they were a family, right? And it's like, that one run-in changed everything. Like, it literally went, like, the switch was flipped in the opposite direction, where it goes from the spark of hope, we can do this, to Yahiko dead in Nagato's arms. And then something just broke in his brain that day, and was like, I'll bring pain to everyone. And then when everyone feels pain, that is when everyone will know peace. And then he goes kind of insane a little bit from that point onward. Now, there's also the talk no jutsu point, and I'll close it off with that. So that's Naruto's strongest technique, of course. I mean, I know he's got that, sage mode, chakra mode, all the different all the different tailed beasts with the giant bijudamas. I get that. But the talk no jutsu, I mean, that is Naruto's strongest point, right? I will say this. It's it's very easy to look at that scene and just say, oh, Naruto talks to Nagato for 5 minutes and he manages to completely change his whole worldview on everything and revive everyone. That's just bullcrap, right? Well, keep in mind, it wasn't Nagato like coming up with this brand new philosophy out of nowhere. That was who he originally was. That was the life, that was the world he wanted to see growing up. All right? He was a very, and Jiraiya said it, he was very empathetic. He was a very caring, sensitive child. He didn't want the world to end up the way it did, but it was just, he was beaten down by it so many times. And the death of Yahiko was that last nail that, like, broke something in him. That, like, I will do whatever I have to do. I will kill as many people. I will slaughter my own sensei if that is what has to be done. I do not care anymore. And so Naruto defeating all of his paths of pain, finding him and speaking to him, it helped Nagato to remember who he was. So it wasn't like Naruto changed his mind. It was more like he managed to wake up the former Nagato. He was able to, like, you know, Jiraiya, he taught both of us, and everything that happened there, emotional music's playing in the background, you know, I think Nagato finally saw it. He kind of had like an epiphany of like, oh God, what have I done? I killed the man that raised us, that saved us. Like, we would be dead in a gutter somewhere in the Rain Village if Jiraiya didn't save us, and I killed him. It was just that moment where he realized what he did was wrong, and he's like, I think he just decided to check out. You know, he just decided, like, screw this. It's Rinne revival jutsu. I'll bring back all those that died recently in the battle, and I'll die in the process. But you know what? I can't do this anymore, right? I can't. Naruto is like, this whole thing that happened. Like, my life has been crap pretty much from day one, and then it was gonna get a little bit better, and then it just dive bombed again. I can't do this anymore, Naruto. So I think that's really what it came from. It was just like, Naruto, thank you for reminding me who I really was. Thank you for, you know, showing me the error of my ways. I will revive the village, and maybe you can find another path. Even though, because a lot of people criticize that, because I think there was a line there in that speech, and it was kind of a long speech. There was a line there in that speech where Nagato maybe asks him, like, how are you going to change the world? Like, what's your great idea? And Naruto doesn't really give him, like, a straight answer, because he's Naruto. Naruto is just like, I'll find some way to do it. There has to be a better way. And yes, that is very naive. That is very naive, but is it really all that different so much to the way that them as kids viewed the world? You know, like, Jiraiya had high hopes for them, and they didn't really know, like, when they were training under Jiraiya, they probably didn't know how they were going to change the world. You know, it was probably, it was a very, very nebulous, ambiguous concept. Like, we're going to try to make the world a better place. It's like, okay, that's a good start, and then it builds it from there. So maybe Nagato saw that in Naruto. He's like, okay, he has the spark. He has the charisma, and he has the drive, and he has the strength, and he has the compassion to maybe take this vague concept of peace that so many other people in the world, not just me, not just Yahiko, not just Konan, not just Jiraiya Sensei, but so many people in the world have this little scrap of hope, like, maybe things can get better. And it's like, I gotta foster that, and I gotta, you know, improve that, and maybe he will find a better route to it. He'll find a better way to get there. And so that's the best the best I could see. Like, Nagato saw himself in Naruto at a younger age, like, if things went a little differently, how it would go. I'm sure Nagato wasn't 100% convinced. I think he was just done with, like, the manipulation and the Akatsuki and Obito and everything. Like, I'm done with this. Konan, I'm sorry, but I can't do it anymore, right? And so I'm gonna go be with Yahiko now. And so I don't think he was even 100% convinced that Naruto would definitely do it. Maybe he was. Maybe he told himself that in his last few minutes of life just to make him more peaceful. But it's like, yeah, maybe he can, maybe he can't. But he might do better than I did, or he might manage to do better than Jiraiya did. He managed to do something. It's like, he's our last hope at any rate. But I think I'm done now. And so he uses Rinne Revival. Also, something about the Rinne Revival that I mentioned last time I talked about that, I was a little confused. I was like, well, wait, they used Rinne Revival to bring back all of the recently deceased, and I thought that's how it worked. But then he also uses it later, well, Obito's forced to use it by Zetsu, to bring back Madara. But Madara's been dead for, like, you know, decades or whatever. So it's like, what I understand is maybe the Rinne Revival, it can bring back a bunch of recently deceased people all at once, or it can bring back one person that's been dead. It doesn't matter how long they've been dead. Maybe something like that for the Rinne Revival, but it is allowed to bring spirits back from the pure world to the physical world and stuff like that. Maybe some kind of deal like that. But yeah, Nagato, I think, was just physically, definitely, and then emotionally and mentally just drained by the end of the invasion of pain and everything. And after Naruto kind of gave him a little bit of dose of reality and he kind of remembered what it was like growing up and being raised by Jiraiya and starting the Akatsuki, he's just like, it's a really sad end for him, right? And he comes back as a zombie later. And he has all the techniques into one body. We talked about that. Him and Itachi actually have some really interesting back and forth. That was one of the most interesting things about those zombies being brought back, the Edo Tenseis, is that it's Itachi and Nagato that were paired up. And so you got to see those two discuss their philosophies and all the stuff that Itachi had to do for his clan that he thought was for the greater good, or he thought he was fulfilling his duty to the village. Nagato and being manipulated by everybody pretty much his whole life, and then the whole thing with what happened with Yahiko. We don't get to see too much of Itachi and Nagato like sitting down and having a conversation, but it's like Itachi helping him walk and they're just like talking as zombies, and that was a very kind of emotional moment in Naruto there, right? But yeah, and I think after at that point when Nagato is defeated and he is able to finally go back to the pure world and get some rest. He's like, even in death, he's like, I'm being manipulated my whole life. He comes back being manipulated by Kabuto. Like, he's not the only one that's being manipulated. Obviously, there's a bunch of other Edo Tenseis and stuff, but it's like his whole life. That's all it was. And he comes, like, really? Even in death, I can't even get a break, right? Obito, kind of the same deal with him. But at any rate, I think at that point when he was finally freed the last time and was able to finally get some rest, I think he realized, okay, Naruto, now you can do it. I maybe wasn't 100% sure the last time I died, but this time, I feel like you can do it. And then he finally disappeared. And Naruto, I mean, once again, I don't read a lot of Boruto. I don't really know what's going on in Boruto. Has world peace happened in Boruto? Has world peace? Do you think at the very least, if it isn't like completely peaceful, I know, okay, how about this? If you don't get the Otsutsuki clan involved, if you don't get the aliens from other worlds involved, if you just get them out of the equation, is the world peaceful under the current rule of, like, the current Kage and Naruto being the 7th Hokage? Like, is it like one of those things where it's like, yeah, everything was going good and great, and then aliens showed up, and that kind of screwed the whole paradigm up, because you really can't control that, right? It's just like, okay, the world's doing good, we got an industrial revolution, Naruto's 7th Hokage, all the other Kages are doing a really good job, you know, the world's doing good. Oh, crap, aliens landed, and now they're trying to take over the world. Shit, well, we can't really... Didn't expect that. I guess we're going to war again, right? You know, it's okay. So beyond Kaguya's clan, do you think Naruto achieved Nagato and Jiraiya, Yahiko's, Konan's dream? Do you think he did? Let me know. That's somebody that knows a little bit more about Boruto than me to make that call. But anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. This was a 2-part special, of course, but I think that's necessary for all the stuff that we needed to discuss with this character. Already made one on Konan, so maybe I should make a Yahiko video at some point. I feel like a lot of Yahiko's stuff is tied directly into Nagato, so maybe not. Who's left in the Akatsuki? Who else do we got? Well, we have Toby, Obito, Madara. We also have Orochimaru, and we have Itachi. I said I would save Itachi for the very last. Maybe next time we can tackle, considering we just did Nagato, maybe we should do Toby. We should do Obito next. We should do Obito next, and then we should do Orochimaru, and then we'll close it out with Itachi. I think that would be a good way to handle that. All right, then. So, catch you back here next time where we talk about all the stuff that happened with Obito. That's also probably going to be a long one. Thanks for watching, everybody. Tekking and Barry signing out.